Welcome all law-abiding citizens of the Underhive. Today I'm going to talk about how I'm converting some Ogryns, just standard 40k Ogryns, into servitor Ogryns. Why? Well, this box, as you probably are already aware, or if you've seen my previous video on the servitor Ogryns, only has 2 models in the box. Now there was a previous box with more models in it. I didn't pick the box up because initially I just picked up these 2 guys thinking they'd be great just to have some Ogryn kind of civilians milling around my Underhive, because when I'm playing I would like to have loads of civilians, because apparently there's thousands of people living in these Underhives. So it always puzzles me when people are playing they don't have civilians or rats or ticks or something in the background. I like a busy Underhive. Yeah, there is dead quadrants, dead quarters, but I do like lots of civilians. There are rules that if you do take a pot shot near people, they could react and they could attack. But after picking up these 2 guys and realising how flipping awesome they look, I was half tempted to make my own team. So when I assembled, I didn't add all the little bits on there because I thought it looked a little bit cluttered. For example, this bit here, as cool as it looks on the chest, I don't know. And like in the picture, yeah, it looks purpley, it looks kind of cool, but it seems to take away the grim dark look that I was looking for. Like if they got glass vials on his front and he's supposed to be a servitor Ogryn, would these glass vials get broken? Yes, I'm reading into it too much, but that's why I love Necromunda. And the other guy did a similar job, didn't put the neck piece around, didn't put the welding mask on, because I wanted the welding mask down, but it just looked a bit, I don't know, off. Bear in mind I do welding myself, I didn't think it looked very welding mask-like. So, I have got the remaining parts of this box after building these 2 guys, which, to be fair, isn't a lot. Yes, I've got the neck collar-y piece here. I've got the low bot head, a couple different head swaps, and a grappling hook, plus a few little extra bits. Not a vast amount, but with these guys that I picked up from my friend Greg recently, I want to convert into slave Ogryns. So that's a better angle, isn't it? Yeah, so I want to convert these guys so they fit in. Now, Greg assembled them, and he has lost the slab shields, which is fine because there are no rules for slab shields on these guys. It would be pretty cool if they did defeat a enforcer and modified the slab shields for their own use. But other than that, I can't see how these guys will get any slab shields. And alright, they can have close combat weapons like the mauls, like they're equipped with at the moment. And yes, they are pretty hardy and they might want to add extra armor, so these bits would be okay, they would kind of fit in. But I want to get rid of most of the Imperial iconography, but things like the brands on the arms might be slightly difficult unless I have a little bit of green stuff. But I'm half tempted to leave it in, because these guys were part of the Imperium in my head. These were servitors before they went rogue, before they incited the Ogryn uprising, the rebellion, because these guys are slaves and they're breaking out on their own. Hence the rules, when these guys are killed, you do get credits for effectively returning or eliminating these ex-slaves gone rogue. So I think they're wonderful models, they're flipping huge, and I certainly have a few huge bases for Necromunda kicking around. So this kind of size, which is, get my trusty metal ruler out, for those who don't know, in mil, these are flipping huge. I guess they're 40mm bases, so if you've got any 40mm Necromunda bases, that'd be pretty cool. But what bits have I got left over from the sprues of these guys? So if you build them up with the close combat weapons, because no point in using the missile launchers or the Ripper guns because they can't take them, basically. Yeah, they got little shields, but they just kind of look a bit weird, those little shields in the arms, these Ogryns. Slab shields do look absolutely boss. So, Greg, if you find the slab shields, I'd be interested in picking them up. But you know, you've got your bayonet-y bits, your shoulder guards, and a few bits left over. I mean, the hoof and guns are great, and they would make for a great heavy bolter conversion when these guys eventually get a heavy bolter on the black market. But their ballistic skill is terrible. So, what are they armed with normally? Well, a standard Ogryn, so something like this guy, can have a storm welder. That's not bad. He can have heavy rock saws, clubs, so like these guys would fit right in. They can have the arc welder, which is slightly cheaper than the storm welder, which is the close combat variant, not the shooty variant. You could go with the shooty variant, but like I said, the ballistics is pretty dire. And I think, why not just use grenades, because of their brilliant strength, as range weapons rather than, you know, actual range weapons. They can take augmetic fists, like a pair of, like this guy who I've assembled as my leader. Las cutters, spud jackers, like that. That's a spud jacker, which is basically a monkey wrench. And armor-wise, they can have furnace plates and hazard suits. I would say carapace light. I would go with the chest piece on this. Plates looks like maybe like a carapace for these guys. So that's the basic ganger. So axes also work. Two-handed hammers. Basically whatever you think is kind of cool. They can have drop rigs and the usual stuff like the servo harness. Speaking of servo harness, obviously I have done a video before, but if you guys want to see it again, I have got a beautiful conversion from Ian Henderson. He has got a Ogryn with a servo harness, and he put a flamer on it, which I thought was pretty cool, a heavy flamer. And it was converted from a Blood Bowl miniature. So Ian did the conversion work. I just painted it up and bought it from him because I thought it was pretty sweet. So that's how basically it started. I picked up this guy, painted them up, just thought he looked a bit different, a bit cool. Originally I was thinking about having him with a Goliath, hence the mohawk thing going on there. But yeah, so that's the basic guy. And they're not cheap, to be fair. Like the pair of augmetic fists, so just those two weapons alone are 70 points. So more expensive than your standard Goliath, for example. I mean, if you wanted to go a little bit cheaper, you could go for your Lobo slaves. But they're, I mean, they're still toughness 5. Ballistics are even worse because they're on a 6 up rather than a 5 up. The movement's even worse, they're 4 inches rather than 5 inches. And their will and intelligence and initiative, it's just god awful. But the bonus is, they're cheap, and their cool's not bad, because to be fair, they are lobotomized. But still, if you're looking at the like a basic, basic Lobo slave, even in a hazard suit, which means his save is slightly better and he's immune to fire and all that good stuff, he's still not cheap. I mean, I put one with a pair of augmetic fists, which to be fair are 70 credits, but yeah, toughness 5, slow movement. I'm not sure that was the right pick to go with. Whereas the leader, obviously leaders are always slightly more expensive anyway, and they can have skills and things like that. But the armor is still the same. The weapons are still the same. Other than Suspenser, I don't really see much of a difference. They all have. I'm speaking like an Ogryn already. They all have pretty much the same gear. So unless you're buying from the black market, you're probably not going to have any shooty stuff. I was thinking about having a leader with the Ripper gun, because it kind of looks like a heavy bolter, just because it looks cool. Or even one with a missile launcher, because it just looks cool. But chances are, I think I'll be leaning towards more the missile launcher. Not necessarily for coolness, but you know you're going to miss, and at least you can deviate, I suppose, with a missile. It just looks boss when you see an Ogryn firing a missile across the table. But I really am looking forward to some conversion work with these guys. So I've got 3 of them. What am I going to do, and what would you guys like to see me do? Be polite. I meant conversion wise. So Greg's just starting together. I'm going to clean up a few of the mold lines, and let's see what I'm going to do. I do like the gas mask rebreather kind of helmets. They do kind of make them look like badgers. But I will swap out a couple of the heads, maybe put a Lobo head on one of them and do a bit of conversion work. And I do like the armour. It kind of looks like Ogryn Gears of War. So I'll do some conversion stuff and give you an update. So I gently prized off the head. It was plastic glued on, so it was a little bit of a mission. But just scrape off the excess plastic glue, leaving the stump of the head. I will have to cut it flat because all of the heads in the Ogryn slave kit have a flat stump where the head sits. I do want to make a Lobot with one of these guys, and I'm starting to scrape off and smooth back with the edge of my knife the armour here. Try not to remove any rivets if I can, because it's a nice bit of detail. So I've just removed the Imperial symbol there. Just removing any ferried out edges. Obviously you can always use a bit of wet and dry or a small file to make that as smooth as possible. I kind of want it a bit dishevelled and a bit beaten because there is damage there. Of course you could always make it a little bit worse, or better if you know what I mean. So we'll damage it up just a little bit more, make it a bit more crisper, a bit more pronounced. So getting there with a couple of the guys. I don't want to take all the heads off because I do kind of like the gas mask head. So they can have a rock saw. So I do have a spare rock saw from my Goliaths. Now Goliaths, as chunky as they are, that is a tiny handle. Maybe I can cut that off and put that on there. That's possible. But it does look pretty tiny in the hands of a Goliath. Obviously get rid of the strap. It's possible, but it does look a bit puny. So I've got some orc bits, as you do, just happen to have orc bits on sprue. Now I'm thinking, that looks a bit more substantial. Not saying chunky, not shaming these guys, but it is a bit bigger than the base of that. So I can add one of the saws the orcs have. One of the blades, what have we got here, for example, would look more like a decent rock saw for an Ogryn. Slightly orky, granted, but definitely more substantial. And they can have a two-handed axe, a one-handed axe. So I can modify these orc axes. I think would look a bit better. Nothing massively too orky, like anything like that. And certainly not a chain axe that's way too orky, in my opinion, that is. So yeah, modifying them. Because I was looking at the Goliath axes, And as cool as they are, I don't think they're going to be big enough either. Because, yeah, Goliaths are tanks, they're absolute tanks. But it's just not man enough. Sorry, Goliaths. So I've got like the two-handed Goliath hammer here from the upgrade sprue. It still looks pretty small, so bear in mind it's supposed to be a two-handed hammer. That is the same length as the one-handed maul. So a little bit on the puny side. They can have an axe, so I could cut the hands off, a bit of green stuff, and use that axe. As a one-handed weapon, not an issue, but for two hands, I think it's a bit small. So I'll get with the next stage of the plan. Like there's a plan. So as I'm working through the conversions, I've obviously been changing the bases over. So swapping them to the good old-fashioned Necromunda bases. So this guy, I've got an orc weapon here that could be easily used for doing some welding, because these guys obviously are servicing a purpose as well as just kicking some butt. They're obviously maintaining the underhive. I'm not sure of this guy, because obviously he was originally holding a ripper in this hand. It looks more like he's doing maybe a little jaunty dance, a little shanty, with his elbow like that. I'm not entirely sure. But I like to think that he's trying to get a wriggle on. He's actually trying to get some speed up, and he's trying to move. But that's one guy there. Yeah, I could always modify the arm, possibly, at a later date. This is my lobotomized guy. I did like the pose of he's just clobbering some guy, getting a smackdown. And that was the nicely shaved armour. Obviously leaving some dents and some pock marks in it as well. And I've green stuffed that on the side. So I've lopped his armour off with a good old fashioned trusty hobby saw. So keeping his original packaging so I don't murder myself. So hobby saw is very, very good for making those large cuts and not put too much pressure on a model. Because obviously more pressure, more likely to slip and cut yourself. So that I believe was just from the side of a crane or something that I cut off, but I thought it was rather good. The one from the original kit is more of a ball, so more proud, but I did like that. I thought that was a nice little socket that you can just slot another armour onto. Didn't make the green stuff too neat on purpose around, because I want the flesh to kind of be growing around the implant there. So that's my lobotomized guy. This guy, cut the armour off about halfway through. Started green stuffing the strap back in place where the armour was, but of course you guys won't stick the armour on. This was just a rescue and a conversion from a kit I bought from a friend. But of course your guys might be off the sprue, so you won't have to worry about cutting anything back off. Flattened the wrist because I've been umming and ahhing about what to put on the wrist, be it a saw. See, the saws look wicked and everything. This is from an orc kit, Mega Knob kit I believe, and that looks great. But on the rules it says it's a two-hand weapon, so as nice as that is, rules wise are kind of in the back of my head, making me want to do that. I do have a fist from an Invictor warsuit, Space Marine warsuit, which is obviously massively too big. Once again from an orc Mega Knob set, I've got this little bit here I was thinking about sticking it on the arm, and then the other end on the hand like that, or maybe I think I trimmed it so I can get the pistons to sit flush like that, which looks pretty nice. It's not too bad, but it still looks a little bit ridiculous. I mean, the fists on these guys are large, but that fist is even larger again. I'm not sure if that's going to work. It does look a little bit too silly. You can see the thumb, for example, side by side. Maybe half the size again. I wouldn't say twice the size, so that was an option. But what I'm going to do is a good old-fashioned power claw, because I can imagine that would have been some kind of tool to use to cut girders and things like that, and it's been rejigged, repurposed to be a killing weapon. So I'm thinking a nice little mean point, possibly, like you're next. And once I finish with the green stuffing to tidy up his vest, Ode Bruce Willis will have a grenade pouch on the back as well, because I just thought it looked pretty cool. So once that's completely done, I will take pictures and show you what I've done. But in the meantime, we're going back to the old Rock Soul Mega Knob set. I thought this would be pretty cool. So now I'm going to have to get at least one more Ogryn from the 40k set, because I really want to do this conversion. So get your good old fashioned Ripper gum, get one of these, and if you measure it up, you can see that that flat surface there, if I cut the barrel and that section off, would sit nice and flush there, and that would look very much like a nice rock saw. So it would be that kind of length. The reason I went with that size is the rock saw for Goliath you would think was huge, because obviously Goliath are bigger than most of the inhabitants of the Underhive, but next to these Ogryns, they are flipping puny. So I do have, there it is in my Necromunda bits box, a rock saw. So obviously kept the strap on there. I thought that'd be pretty cool with an Ogryn, right? That kind of size? No, still looks flipping tiny. You want a saw like you mean it. So even if I could maybe cut the back off and stick it on his arm, yeah, that would look kind of cool, but the scale's not really there. So what I'm going to do is going to cut that off, cut that part off, glue it on, and the bit I cut off I will probably stick on there as well. And probably green stuff the hole where the casings of the original Ripper cartridges used to come out, or casings should I say, and I think that would look pretty cool. So I'm after at least one more Ogryn. I think a gang of 6 Ogryns would probably be alright. They are quite expensive, but you got to think down the road, hopefully your gang will level up and you get a few more bodies in the gang. So I'm going to start cutting this up and see where it takes me. So even though I've already made up my gang, like I said, I'm looking for a 6th member to add to them, purely because I made a fairly nice conversion in my opinion anyway. The rock saw, like I said, I cut that section off, cut the nose of the Ripper off, green stuff over the hole where the shells get ejected, and a tiny bit of green stuff on the back there. The part that I cut off, as you know, rule number 1, never chuck anything away while converting or doing any kit bash work whatsoever. I stuck it in the gap there. So you had like the forky section, which I cut out, and I've put that on. I've just stuck a random Necromunda type bit on the back. That was from an Orc Mega Knob set as well. So I've got the hand here, really the G.I. Joe, and that goes in the dimple like so. So when I do have, that way around, be helpful, when I do have another Ogryn, it will be roughly like that. So I think that's a very good size for an Ogryn. Yes, it looks flipping massive compared to the Goliath one, but these boys are rather chunky. So that's just a nice conversion bit you can do, and it'll be on my next Ogryn. So I'll definitely have 6 members at least of my gang. And speaking of which, this is my gang complete. So the 2 standard slaves from the box, and these are my conversions. So like I said, they are possibly a slightly different scale. You can see side by side the average guys are a little bit different in height. Grabbing my ruler here for a second, but not too much. So the overall height from head to feet is about 50mm, and that is slightly higher. There's a couple mil difference in it. I think what looks worse is the head sizes. It's not the height of the model, it's the head sizes. So fairly chunky head, and then you get to this guy over here. He's got a massively chunky head. Not judging, not judging. So this is Bruce, Bruce Willis with the vest on. A little bit of green stuffing to make it a bit smoother, purely because I had to pull the armour off, but you won't have that if you kit bash straight from the sprue. So I like to eBay rescue, I like to give models a second chance. You know, it's almost like going to a dog shelter or a cat shelter, giving those miniatures a second chance. Gave him a bit of a menacing look, like he's pointing at somebody with his power claw, which counts as a power fist. But I like it because it kind of looks like the Jaws of Life. Like, these guys still serve a industrial purpose, so that would be useful in their job. But now they're rising up against the man, because these guys are broken away from their captors, no longer slaves. So that's Bruce. I got a lobotomized guy here, which I'm pretty happy with, and I've got the guy here with the welder as well. So I think they still fit in fairly well. I haven't scrubbed off all of the Imperial iconography, but pretty chuffed with them. So there you go, guys. That's how I've converted 40k Ogryns into Necromunda slave Ogryns. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you haven't done already for some more great hobby content. And in the meantime, I'll paint these guys up, and I'll take some pictures, and I'll put it on our Facebook page. Thank you very much for watching.